stuff. So welcome, we are recording, and thankfully I have remembered to hit record. Sometimes that's been a lesson learned. So today we'll be speaking with Keri Barnum with NewShelves.com, and we'll introduce her shortly. I want to remind everybody that the call is being recorded. You'll receive a link to the recording and to the YouTube video after the call. Please keep yourself muted on your end so as to avoid any background noise. Also, please find your chat button. It's down at the bottom. If you run your mouse along the bottom, there's a little chat bubble down there. If you have a question, make sure you drop it into the chat box and we'll make sure we get it answered. We promise to end the call shortly before noon. And today we're speaking with Keri Barnum, as I mentioned. Originally I met Amy Collins. She came to St. Louis and spoke here a few years ago, and we've had an ongoing electronic digital friendship since then. And I interviewed her a couple years ago on one of our Lunch and Learns. And so it's fantastic to welcome you, Keri. I know that do you call yourself the co-director or co-founder? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm the executive director of NewShelves Books. So Amy Collins started our company back in 2006, and originally we were book distribution. So we had a huge warehouse and we were shipping books out all over. But as print on demand really picked up, and we realized that is where indie authors and self-published and mid-level authors and publishers would really be able to make a profit without a lot of risk. Mm-hmm. We realized that is where we wanted to start teaching and training. So we started learning everything we could. And in 2016, our distribution center was shut down, and we've just been doing publishing, consulting, and book marketing ever since.
That's fantastic. And I know today, you're a wealth of knowledge, but I know today that we have decided to focus in on how to get our books into libraries and bookstores. Mm-hmm. And because I get your email, e-news notifications, I know that you've been talking and listening to a lot of libraries. Can you kind of tell us, what is it that we need to know right now about libraries?
Yeah. With libraries, the important thing to realize is two things, and it all revolves around money. It's all about budget. So 2020 budgets are about to close out. Keep in mind that I know we've been through a heck of a year and it's been kind of crazy, but the truth is that 2020 budgets were decided long ago. So they still have budgets to spend on books this year. However, that's going to change in January. 2021 budgets are coming up. We don't exactly know what's going to happen with that. However, we do know that approximately half of the libraries in the US will be getting their full budget for 2021, or half of their budget, in January. So now's a really, really good time to be reaching out to libraries, because you're either going to hit the end of 2020, where if they don't use it, they lose it, or you're going to be hitting them right before they get their new budget in 2021. And if, as I suspect, their budgets are a little tighter this year, they will probably be buying more in the beginning. And I think purse strings will be a little tighter at the end of 2021.
Well, I know I've been reading different articles that come across my desk about how the surge of people using libraries over the last 7 months. And it's not just paper books, but it's also the audio books. What have you heard about what's going on with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So people are using libraries. It's a great free resource. And in tough times, people are turning to libraries more than ever. Absolutely, ebooks. Many are using the Overdrive system, also known as the Libby system. So ebooks and audiobooks are huge. And the thing with libraries is even when things shut down, even when you can't go into a library, their ebook system and their audiobook systems are still functioning and running. So I've seen a lot of librarians investing even more in those systems because it's a service they can offer no matter what. And I think we'll see that trend continue on into 2021, where really ebooks are imperative. So if you have an ebook, it's really important to make sure you're getting it into the Overdrive system.
Have you noticed any statistics regarding genre? Are there particular types of books that people are requesting more than others?
Yeah, we're seeing a trend towards fiction. People don't want to, I
We
think
want
in
to
the beginning,
escape, is that it?
exactly. In the beginning of this craziness in COVID, people were talking about bettering themselves. I've got a month off of work, let me learn a language. And now we're like, let me eat pie and read romance stories.
Yeah.
And so fiction is really picking up because people do want an escape. And I think we'll see that through the end of the year. Some self-help will be more more relevant in the new year. That's when you see a lot of health, diet, everyone makes their resolutions, get their budget on track. So I think we'll see some more how-to kind of books pumping up in January, but right now everyone just wants fiction. They want romance and thrillers and that kind of thing.
Awesome. Yeah. I see Tyrone's joining us. Hi, Tyrone. So in terms of what are some new ways that we can look at libraries as a resource for ourselves, in terms of, we know that they have an increased volume of books coming in and out that way. Some people have told me that they like to go in and introduce themselves to the head librarian, or who is it? Is it worth our time to go in and do that type of relationship building in a library?
If you're local, I always think it's smart to build local relationships with the acquisition librarian. But keep in mind, you need to have something to drop off. You can say, I'd love to see the acquisition librarian, but if they are not available, I have this book one sheet that has all my information on it, because they're also busy. And what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of our librarians are pulling double duty. As staffing has restricted and gotten smaller, the acquisition librarian may also be cataloging books. They may also be cleaning books, because a lot of them have cleaning processes now. So we have to be mindful of their time and be prepared to drop something off, because you don't want to go and say, oh, okay, I'll come back. It's better to have something in hand so that when you do come back, you can say, I just wanted to check in, say hi, and learn their name. People like to connect. So rather than saying, can I talk to the person who buys the books? If you say, I was wondering who your acquisitions librarian is, that way when you come back, you can ask for Mary, you can ask for Jim, you can ask for someone specifically, which is honestly more likely to get you actually talking to them.
Do libraries like it if you donate your book? I get asked that question a lot.
Here's the thing. If you ask the acquisitions librarian and they say, yes, we would love a donated copy, that's great. If you just send in a book and you say, I'm just donating my book, it usually ends up in the sale pile. If they haven't specifically said they will take a copy of the book, they are going to put it in the sale pile that goes, most all libraries have them. It's how they make some of their budgets. So don't send it in just willy-nilly, because most of the time you're wasting your money and you're not actually getting where you want to go.
Gotcha. One of the things that we have conversations with our authors a lot about is how they set up their copyright page in order for it to be approved and more welcome in a library. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there's two things. If you're with a larger publisher, they have to have at least 3 authors and 10 titles. You can get a Library of Congress number, which I highly recommend. However, if you are self-publishing, or if you're a smaller publisher, you don't have that option, but you can get a PCIP block. And that's a cataloging block that you have made by a cataloging librarian. Not just anyone can make it. I've seen enough of them that I could probably put things in the right place. But the thing is that part of what a cataloging librarian does is they are putting your book in the Sky River system, in the WorldCat system, which are huge cataloging systems that make your book available worldwide in the cataloging system. And they put it into this little PCIP block, and it's just a block of text that looks crazy, and that goes into your copyright page. And it's a value added feature, because if they don't have it already, if you sell your book to a library, if they don't have that block already, one of their librarians has to take the time to catalog your book before it can go into the system. And I've talked to librarians that say your book can sit in a room waiting to be cataloged for over 2 years. Yeah. By that time, 2 years just sitting on a shelf. Whereas if you have the PCIP block, all the information's in there. All they have to do is search your ISBN and say, yep, we have that book. They scan it in and you're good to go. So not only does it get your book on the shelf quicker, but it makes their job and their life a little bit easier. So they're just one more step closer to saying yes when you pitch them your book.
I know that's one of the things that we guarantee here is that copyright page will be set up correctly so that librarians, so it makes their job easier. One of the other questions I had, I know that Ingram recently in the last year or so bought Baker and Taylor, and Baker and Taylor had a reputation for being one of the major library resources where the library would go to them. Is that necessarily true, or do libraries buy their books from Ingram? Where do libraries get their books?
Well, libraries buy their books from all over. They buy their books from Ingram Wholesaler. They occasionally will buy directly from the publisher. About a third of them buy right off of Amazon, believe it or not. Because I know, isn't it crazy? Because Amazon offers them certain incentives, and also they can get it quickly. They are buying their books, their ebooks on Overdrive, and the largest place is Baker and Taylor, which is actually owned by Follett. And Follett is often used in schools and school systems, and they only sell their books into libraries and school systems. So that is by far the largest. The problem for most authors with Baker and Taylor and Follett is that they don't do print on demand. So it's not like where you can upload to Ingram Spark and your book's available on Ingram Wholesaler. So for Baker and Taylor, you have to apply for your book to be carried with them. You can absolutely apply, anyone can, and if they approve, then you have to send them copies of your book to warehouse and sell. It's not impossible, definitely harder.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of inside information. There's always twists and turns, you know, you want to do this, but you got to do this first, or you might want to go over here. Now in the world, I want to remind everybody about your chat box. And if you do have questions for Keri, please type them into that chat box and we'll pull you into the conversation. Let's kind of move over to bookstores and gift shops for a while, and whether you put that in the same category. So tell us a little bit about the last 7 months, what you've seen with the bookstores. And I know a lot of ours here in St. Louis, the smaller mom and pops are the ones that are surviving because they're doing the drive up and catering, just some unimaginable fun stuff. So Yes.
Well, and that's what we're seeing nationwide. We are seeing that some of the indie bookstores are doing actually better, because more than ever, people are consciously choosing to order local, to buy local. They are purposely trying to make sure that they're supporting their local stores. Meanwhile, Barnes & Noble is closing stores right and left, and they're struggling, and we're definitely seeing that. However, what we're also seeing is that when everything was closed, people were very mindful to buy local. But now you're back to work, maybe your kids are hopefully going back to school, life is normal. ish, people are forgetting their local retailers again. They've kind of gone back to just ordering on Amazon. And so we're seeing the indie bookstores being very, they want the community still, and they're asking the community to still be involved and to support them. Part of that as an author is if you can go to a bookstore and tell them how you are going to draw people to their store. If you can say, I would love for you to carry my book, I'm not selling it personally, and I'd love to tell everybody to just come locally and buy it from you. That tells them that you're going to send people to their store. And what they're thinking is, well, hey, if they come in and they are buying Kim's book, maybe they will also pick up a pair of these socks that have Harry Potter on them, or they're going to pick up a bookmark or children's books. And so we're definitely seeing where the indie bookstores specifically are wanting to support local, but they are also wanting local to support them. And you'll get so much further when you come in with that in mind. And you need to know your discount. Bookstores require generally a 40% discount. And so it's so important that you know what your discount is. And if your discount on Ingram is not 40%, you need to be prepared to do a consignment deal. Which of course, consignment, you're sending your books in, and if they sell, then you split the profits of the sale. And I'm seeing that from bookstores more and more as well, because it allows local people to get their books in their stores, but there's no risk for the bookstore other than shelf space.
So I have a question that just came in regarding the libraries again, and we'll get back to the bookstores here in a second. When you go into the acquisitions manager, besides your sales sheet, do you bring a copy of the book?
Yes, always have a copy of your book. I will even say if you are an author, you should always have a copy or two of your book sitting in your car. Put them in the trunk. You never want to have your big opportunity and say, oh, and I have a copy of my book. I have a client who was somehow got herself in front of someone at Netflix who wanted to see her book, and she didn't have a copy. Don't put yourself in that situation. Always keep a copy of your book. And yes, when you go into a bookstore, a library, always have a copy, always offer them a free copy or a review copy. And sometimes they'll say, oh no, that's okay, we'll order. Sometimes they'll take it. But you should always have your book with you when you're going to request that someone stock your book.
Well, we tell our authors, and I don't even know if they, I think like Office Depot and places like that and Staples still have them, where they're boxes like file boxes, but they have a lid and a handle.
Yes.
Fill that with 6 or 10 books and keep it in the trunk of your car, because you never know. And there have been so many times with my books even that someone will say, oh, I've been wanting to buy one of your book, and it's like, I happen to have one. And you can
Isn't
go
that
get
lucky?
So you just never know. When we used to travel more, it was always keeping an extra one in your suitcase, because someone will probably ask if you do. But so back, I want to get back to the Ingram and retailers. And you mentioned something about the 40% discount on Ingram. So when you're filling out, there's a, what do they call it? Calculator. What do they call it? The publisher's.
Yeah, the publisher compensation
calculator. Thank you. On Ingram, and you can fill in all the details, the size and the page count, etc., about your book. And then at the very bottom of that form, there is, if you scroll down, there's an area that says discount. And talk a little bit about discounts, because I know they work same on Amazon, but what is the preferred discount, whether it's for a library, and maybe it's different, and whether it's for a bookstore, and how can you use that number to benefit you as the author?
Sure. So if you are pitching yourself to bookstores, they expect a full trade discount, which is 40%. The really important thing to consider is that if you're using Ingram Spark, that means you have to set your discount at 55%. Because what happens is that once the book goes from Ingram Spark, the printer, to Ingram Wholesaler takes their cut, which is 15%. So then the bookstores and the buyers get a 40% discount. That is what they need to keep their lights on, to actually make a profit on your book so that it's worthwhile for them to carry it.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's bookstores. Libraries are totally different because libraries are not in the business of selling for profit. They are generally going to get a book, they're going to put it into circulation, and that's it. I mean, they're not trying to necessarily get this big discount. Do they like a discount? Of course, we all do. But 25% to libraries is fine. Some of the big, like universities and things that sell books, and the university presses even set their discounts at 5 to 10%. And libraries still order them because, again, they're not in the business of making a profit. They're in the business of getting great books their patrons will love, so that they want their audience happy. They want the people coming in happy because that's what keeps them open. So if you know that you are going to be pitching bookstores, let's just say you're like, my book's not a great fit for libraries. It needs to go into bookstores. And if you're pitching bookstores, your book should be probably only a year or two old. If you've got a 10-year-old book, they're not as likely to take it. But if your book's in the first year, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask what you mentioned, and I was going to write it down so I didn't forget, but you mentioned whether you're a good fit for libraries or a good fit for bookstores. What determines in your mind whether it is a good fit we'll start with libraries and do libraries first.
Well, I think first you have to know your audience, and you have to know who is going to buy and read your book. Bookstores tend to like things that move off the shelves quickly. If you have a diet book and it's January, great, perfect for bookstores. If you have a diet book and it is October, no. So I think it's knowing where your audience is and where they're going to be at. For libraries, though, know your community. If your community has a high number of seniors, then anything having to do with senior care, taxes, financials, those types of books are very popular. If you have a library that really caters to children, they have lots of story times and things like that, they'll be looking for children's books. So I don't think that there's a blanket of what works in a library, but I think it's important to know what works for your library. And then pitch it off of that. And that also really helps your stance, because if you go to your library and say, I know that you have 10 story times every week and you're always running through children's books, I'd really love if you would consider mine. That tells them you've taken an interest, you know their market, and that your book may actually be a good fit. So I think it's just knowing your readers and your market specifically.
That's great. So we have a couple questions. Do you get involved? Well, I'll read Kim. Kim, she lives in a rural area with a small library. It might be outdated. When she thinks of a library, she thinks of them having one copy of a book. Is that correct? If you get into one library, does it connect you to others with the use of the PCIP number, so you might have an opportunity to sell to other libraries?
Yeah, so it depends on your library system. For instance, I live outside of the main city in Rochester, and my library is very small. However, we are interconnected to all of Rochester, which is 15 libraries, I believe. So they may buy one copy, they may buy 3, but we have interlibrary loans where they'll pass things back and forth. So many times I'm not just in one system, I would be in 15 libraries essentially. And if my book's getting checked out and there's becoming a wait for it, they will order more copies. They do track that. They track books that have a long wait list. Now, as far as the PCIP block, one of the huge benefits of that is that your book is available in the catalog, and you can find it at worldcat.org. And worldcat.org is a system where you can punch in your ISBN, and if your book has been cataloged, it will show the libraries that are cataloging your book, which is really fun sometimes because you put it in there and you'll be like, oh, I didn't know this place was carrying my book. And so that can be helpful, because then as you're pitching your book to other libraries, you can say, well, it's currently in 10 libraries, or it's currently in the Rochester library, and I'd really like it in the Buffalo library as well. it's kind of social proof that your book is being carried somewhere. And those librarians talk, you'd be surprised. And so I wouldn't surprise me in the least if they get into their librarian groups and say, hey, anyone from the Rochester Library here, because someone just told me about this book and said you guys are carrying it and I want to know how it's doing. They have their little network.
Yeah.
So I think it definitely can matter having that visibility.
Mm-hmm. Bill is asking, he says his most recent book is designed especially for seniors, and we've touched on that a little bit. He's asking, how do you get an ad into AARP publications? They've already told me that a review by them requires a national reputation.
Yep.
Can you
AARP
speak?
is hard. They have a huge, absolutely huge distribution list, which is why when you're doing advertising with them, I believe their lowest tier starts at 5,000.
Wow.
And that's regional. I actually have a client who we were looking into AARP for some ads, and their fees are steep. I'm sure they get you into a lot of places, but they're very steep.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's hard. More than that, what I would do is I would try to come up with an article idea to pitch them and ask them if you can write an article for them. If they like your idea, it's free, it's free content for them. Usually they'll give you a byline in which they will talk about your book. Still hard, it's not guaranteed, but you're more likely to get that without paying thousands of dollars. So it's worth a shot. And then look into some of the smaller magazines. I think there might be like Senior Living, other opportunities like that.
Country Living is another really big one in the senior market.
Yeah, that's good.
I do want to make sure before we leave, Patricia mentioned your free advice Fridays, so I want to make sure we talk about that. And then Tyrone's in Miami. You're saying Miami Beach just lost their one bookstore, which was indie on the beach due to the shutdown. There are two other indie stores, but they're off the beach, including Barnes & Noble, which is about 40 minutes away. Is it a risk to start an indie bookstore now?
Ooh, to start anything right now, I think is a risk. I think it could for sure be a risk. I think it depends on your model. I think that any store that's going to perform well has to have online options. They have to have a strong platform. So if everything shuts down, no worries, I can deliver. Or, you can order online. I think that what we saw with a lot of indies is that they struggled to go from their community supporting them in store to building an online platform. And they're learning and they're adapting, but any indie that starts out with a strong online platform, they've got their ordering down online and they know what they will and can do for the community outside of the bookstore is what will make a strong business plan.
I know I just read an article and my memory tells me that it was about a bookstore / coffee shop / bakery that just opened at like somewhere out in the Seattle, up in the Northwest somewhere. And the kind of mirrors what you just said in that don't rely upon one thing and make sure that you've got a way to do it electronically and through digital, not just
and other things to draw people in, because I may come in for a croissant, but maybe I'll pick up that book. We're seeing that as well. There's one bookstore that is a winery. They have a winery, so it's wine and books, which is like my perfect night. So there's lots of things like that. Find a partner, find someone else who's kind of wanting to do this. I've even seen it split where literally it's like bake shop over here, bookstore over here, and we share the rent or whatever it is.
Yeah. Bookstore, I saw another one, it was bookstore that had cats, and then they do cat yoga on Saturdays, so it's just like people are really thinking outside of the box. And it's like, okay, one of our clients just quit her corporate job and is starting, it's a consulting business, but she's decided what better time now than now to start a new business. So two sides to that coin. So as we're closing in on 12 o'clock, what is the one key point that you want to make sure that we take away from this conversation with regards to libraries? And I know you've been running a promotion lately for to help people get into libraries. Can you kind of sum all that up for us?
Yeah. The most important thing I can tell you about bookstores and libraries is know your market. Do your research and find out what they need. Too many people come to them and say, I want you to carry my book. I need this. And it doesn't work well. But if you go there offering something they need, you're going to get their ear much quicker. So find how your book can serve a market, either a library or a bookstore, and lead with that. As far as libraries, we are currently doing a library mailing, which is we have a very large list of over 7,000 libraries with NewShelves, where we have buyers that we've worked with for years. And we are doing a mailing where we're mailing out to that 7,000 list to pitch books. Right now, again, with budgets being right on point. So if you're interested in that, you can just shoot me an email. It's info@newshelves.com.
So I'm not sure if Julie's on. I'll type that in here for everybody, or if you're getting ready to type it in.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, thank you.
There.
And tell us all about your Free Advice Fridays.
Yeah, so Free Advice Fridays, we have, I'm not joking when I say probably 100 questions come in every week, just authors asking about where to buy an ISBN or what's a PCIP block, and we love to help them, but that's a lot of emails to answer. So we started Free Advice Fridays, which is every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. I go live, do it on Zoom, and it also feeds over to Facebook, and free consulting. We answer questions for an hour, and if you've got a question, consulting and book publishing and marketing, it can get really pricey, and sometimes you have to pay for good quality. It's just how it is. But if we can help here and there with some free advice, we will. So freeadvicefridays.com, you can sign up for that. And tomorrow I'm very excited because we have New York Times bestseller and New Yorker cartoonist Bob Eckstein's going to be on there. So I'm very excited about that. Bob's very talented.
So I want to make sure that we got everybody's questions asked. I'm going to unmute everyone. And actually, you get to unmute yourself. If you have a question, jump in now as you unmute yourself. Tyrone, you got another question?
Well, it's in relation to the same one. And I just want to say the reason why I brought that up was because, you know, Miami has had a complete shutdown for a period. And one indie bookstore that everyone loved to go to on Lincoln Road, Books and Books, which has been around for over 30 years. And they have, I think, 3 or 4 shops in the city, but one on South Beach. And so they were shut down and others are off the beach. But now the cultural department of Miami Beach, because there's so many shops closed, has decided that they were going to open up a cultural thing for artists, that they will subsidize part of the rent or most of the rent for artists and people, non-profits, to open other things there. So yesterday I was asked if I would be interested in studying. So I thought, oh, that's a good idea, because then I could do books with designs, bring all these different artists and creatives, young artists in the communities, in the community and outside of the community. In order for people to be able to still get books being the main draw, but having like young designers to have 1 or 2 pieces or art
gallery, yeah.
Gallery stuff there. So that's why I thought, is it a risk? And I thought they're willing to give it as a pop-up for a few months.
Right.
That could be a way to test the market. So that's why I thought, let me check and see what your thoughts were. Is it worth it?
Yeah, I don't. Well, the fact that it's a pop-up, I would say that helps. You get a lot of attention. There's so many puzzle pieces there between, you know, getting media attention and indie authors and indie artists, and, you know, that whole independent, that might be a way to draw it in too. But yeah. Well, we'll circle back and I'll brainstorm on that one, Tyrone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
Let's see. Carrie, did you have a comment?
Oh, no, I just think that if you're going to do that, I agree, pop-up makes it kind of more appealing. And I would really lean heavily on the people that you are wanting to feature. If you have young artists, lean on them, absolutely. But I need you to share it. I need you to market it as well. So that way they are pulling in people as well.
Let's see. Bill, I noticed you unmuted yourself, and Patricia, do you have questions? Hop in here.
No, I just wanted to say thank you. That's been great.
I took Keri's advice because I listened to her program on Fridays. It's a wonderful program to listen to, Free Advice Fridays. And I did go into a local bookstore in St. Charles, Missouri, which is on the other side of St. Louis. And my book is not published. It's being illustrated. And I did talk to them and ask them if they would be interested in my children's book. And they would take it on consignment. They said next year, once they get through this season. So, and they said they use the terminology, the 60-40 split. They take 40, you get 60. So it does work to go in face to face. But I'm working on putting together a sell sheet. So I do take your free advice from Fridays. Thank you very much.
I'm glad that it was helpful. That's awesome.
Well, and remember that Keri has put her contact information in the chat. There will also be a follow-up email Friday at the latest on Monday. It is a busy time of the year for us, and where it will include Keri's information and a link to this recording, as well as to we're now on YouTube video. So any last minute questions before we hop off?
I have
Kim.
one.
Hi, Kim.
So I haven't. Hi, how you doing?
Awesome.
What is a sell sheet? I'm not sure what a sell sheet is.
Keri?
So it's sometimes called a sell sheet or a book one sheet, and it literally is one sheet of paper that has all the information for your book. It should have your ISBN, your price. It should have where your book is available, what discount it's available at from Ingram or from Baker and Taylor. Basically, it's something that you can show or drop off, and the book buyer, the acquisition librarian would have everything they need to buy the book or contact you. So you also need your contact information.
Okay.
If you've got a website or an email address, something like that.
And sometimes we make those
All right.
with the size of the book, so if it's a 6x9 book, we'll make a 6x9 postcard, and then it has all that pertinent information on the back. Yeah. Keri, thank you so much. You've been a wealth of information today. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. And then, and Lisa commented also, it's been a fantastic, it went very fast. It's like, whoa, we're done already. Yeah. And enjoy that beautiful fall behind you. That's gorgeous. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Oh, well, thank you so much. You guys are great.
Thanks for being
Cathy.
here.
Thanks, Keri.
Bye-bye.